Long-time lurker, first-time poster. So I, female, 28, feel like my entire family has turned against me over something that's honestly none of their business, and I'm starting to question if I'm being unreasonable here. My mom keeps pushing me to tell her who my son's, male 6, father is, and it all exploded into this huge fight that my kid actually overheard. Am I the idiot for refusing to give them this information? Okay, so some background, I guess. I got pregnant when I was 22, right after this really bad breakup that basically destroyed me emotionally, like I'm talking couldn't get out of bed for weeks type of thing. I met this guy who seemed perfect at first, but anyway, that's a whole other story that didn't end well. The point is, my son's dad isn't in the picture and hasn't been since before he was born. My family knows this, but they keep acting like I'm hiding some big secret instead of just protecting my privacy. My brother, male, 31, usually tries to stay out of family fights, but he's been getting dragged into this lately too. So here's what happened. 2 weeks ago, my son was complaining his throat hurt during Sunday dinner at my mom's place. She immediately goes into nurse mode, taking his temperature and looking down his throat with a flashlight. She declares we need to see a doctor right now. It was literally just a sore throat, but okay. At the pediatric appointment, the doctor asks the normal questions about family medical history, including the father's side. I said I don't have that information, which is true. My mom jumps in and starts explaining our complicated situation to the doctor while I'm sitting right there. I told her to stop, but she kept going on about how important family medical history is. It was so embarrassing. Well, apparently, that started something because now she calls me every single day with some new medical article she found online. Like just a few days ago, she showed up at my apartment with a stack of printed WebMD articles about inherited throat conditions. I'm not even kidding. She's doing that thing where she acts like she's just concerned about my son's health, but really she's trying to guilt me into giving her information. Then last week, my son brought home this birthday card he made at school. His birthday isn't until December, but they were doing an art project or something. It had dinosaurs on it, which is his current obsession. My mom sees it and immediately starts asking all these detailed questions about what kind of dinosaurs he likes, what toys he plays with, what his daily routine is. She says she wants to plan a special birthday surprise for him. I gave short answers because honestly it felt weird how much detail she wanted. Like, why do you need to know his exact favorite building blocks to plan a birthday party? But then she kept pushing, and I started feeling like a bad mom for not sharing more about my own kids' interests. Everything got really bad this past Sunday at family dinner. My mom was doing her passive-aggressive thing, making comments about how some families share important information, and it takes a village to raise a child. I tried redirecting the conversation to my son's upcoming school project about dinosaurs, which by the way he's super excited about and spent all week researching different types. But then she interrupts me and asks what exactly I'm hiding. My brother, who usually stays quiet during these things, suddenly tells me that maybe mom has a point and that I'm being selfish keeping my son from knowing his dad's family. I was like, selfish? For protecting my kid from a situation that could potentially mess up our lives. Their voices kept getting louder, and I'm trying to get them to stop because my son is in the living room watching TV. Well, guess what happens next? My son appears in the kitchen doorway with tears in his eyes, asking why everyone was fighting about his daddy. I scooped him up and told him everything was fine, just a grown-up disagreement, but he kept asking why everyone was mad about his daddy and if daddy was bad. I was done at that point. I grabbed our stuff and headed for the door. My mom follows us out to the parking lot and literally blocks my car door. She tells me she's done playing games and that either I tell her who he is or she'll figure it out herself. She says my son deserves to know his family. I told her that was a threat and she had no right to make decisions about my son's life. She just kept saying how I was being irresponsible and that he has the right to know his grandparents. Like, maybe he does, but that's my decision to make as his mother, right? The whole drive home, my son kept asking questions about why grandma was mad and if he was in trouble. It took forever to calm him down, and I had to lie and say it was just about adult stuff that had nothing to do with him. Look, I know my family thinks they mean well, and I get that having medical history would be helpful, but the situation with my son's father is complicated in ways they don't understand. I'm not keeping secrets to be mean. I'm protecting both of us from potential problems and hurt. My mom has always been the type to take over during any crisis, but when there isn't a real crisis, she kind of creates one. And my brother, I don't know what his deal is lately. He's usually the peacekeeper who avoids conflict at all costs. For him to actually take sides like that was really unexpected and honestly hurtful. I've been a single mom for 6 years. I've figured out how to handle everything on my own. Doctor appointments, school stuff, all of it. My son is happy and healthy and well-adjusted. We have our routines. I lay out his clothes for the whole week every Sunday because structure helps both of us feel more in control. We're doing fine, but now I'm second-guessing myself. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I should just tell them and get it over with. But then again, once I give them that information, I can't take it back. And knowing my mom, she'll probably try to track down his family and fix everything, whether I want her to or not. I just want to protect my kid and maintain the peaceful life we've built together. Is that really so wrong? Am I the idiot for refusing to tell my family who my son's father is, even though it caused this huge fight that upset my son? Edit. Since so many are asking, no, I didn't tell my son the details about his father before, because honestly, what's the point? He's never asked specific questions until now, and I was waiting until he was older to have that conversation. I've always just said Daddy isn't around, but that doesn't mean anything bad about him or about us. To those asking if there's abuse or danger involved, it's not that simple. It's more about protecting us from getting hurt again and avoiding problems that could mess up the stability we've worked so hard to build. My son doesn't need the complications that would come with opening that door right now. Now, for the first update. Welcome back, everyone. Things got so much worse since my last post, and honestly, I'm starting to think you guys were right about my mom not letting this go. So yesterday, I came home from work to find my apartment full of people I've never seen before in my life. Like, what the actual hell? I'm talking 15 strangers eating cake in my living room while my son runs around showing them his dinosaur collection. I walk through my own front door, and there's my mom in the kitchen wearing an apron. My apron, by the way, acting like this is totally normal. She told me they thought they'd throw him an early birthday party. Early birthday party. His birthday is in December. It's September. I'm standing there like, who are these people? And she starts giving me these super vague answers about cousins from out of state and old family friends who wanted to meet him. But here's the thing. These total strangers knew things about my son that they couldn't possibly know. This one woman comes up to me and starts talking about how much he loves building those specific magnetic blocks, which he literally just got into last month, and his obsession with velociraptors specifically, not just dinosaurs in general. When I asked how she could possibly know that, she gets this weird look and says they've been hearing about him for years, hearing about him from WHO exactly. I pulled my mom aside and was like, what the hell is going on here? Who did you invite to my apartment? She just kept deflecting and saying stuff about people who care about him and how family connections are important. But I've never seen any of these people before in my life, and my son was acting like he'd known them forever. Then this older woman comes over while my son is playing with some new toys these random people brought him. She's just staring at his face with this really intense expression. Then she tells me he has such strong family features and looks just like his father's side of the family. My stomach just dropped. I was like, excuse me, how would you know what his father's side looks like? Her face went completely white, and she started backtracking and mumbling something about just general features, but my mom immediately swooped in and changed the subject to thanking everyone for coming. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I went to my bedroom to call my brother for backup, because honestly, I was starting to panic. And that's when I saw my mom's purse sitting open on my bed. There was this small notebook sticking out, and I don't know why, but something made me look. I saw my old student ID from college was photocopied and clipped to the first page. Somehow, she'd gotten into my personal documents to find clues. There were highlighted sections showing my emergency contacts from 6 years ago, including one that said, Thomas, do not contact. You guys, she has pages of handwritten notes about Thomas family members with names, phone numbers, addresses. Thomas. His name is Thomas, and I never told her that. Ever. I marched back to the kitchen, waving this notebook around, demanding an explanation, and she looked caught, like actually caught red-handed. She tried to grab it from me, but I held it away and started reading out loud about Margaret Thomas, grandmother, works at library on Oak Street, and David Thomas, uncle, lives in Riverside Apartments. How the hell does she have this information? I never gave her his last name. I never even confirmed his first name when she would guess random names over the years. She finally admits she hired a private investigator. A private investigator to track down my son's father's family. She said she's been gathering information to protect us and that I left her no choice because I was being irresponsible by not having this information myself. I completely lost it at that point. I started yelling about boundaries and privacy and how dare she investigate my personal life behind my back. All these strangers are still in my living room eating cake and hearing me scream at my mother. My son comes running over asking why mommy is upset, and I couldn't even form words. I told everyone they needed to leave, right now. These strangers, who apparently know more about my kid than I realized, were giving me looks like I was the bad guy for kicking them out of my own apartment. One of them said they just wanted to meet their family member before my mom rushed them out. Family member. These people think my son is their family member. After everyone left, I demanded my emergency key back. That's how she got in. I gave her a key 3 years ago when I had a childcare emergency and couldn't miss this huge work presentation. I only gave it to her for emergencies, not for her to throw secret parties with strangers while I'm at work. She reluctantly handed it over, but then started crying about how she was just trying to help and doing what any grandmother would do. She said I was being cruel for keeping her grandson away from his other family, and that she found these people right after last Sunday, but was waiting for the right time to introduce them. Right after last Sunday. She said she moved fast after our fight and had been calling these people all week to set this up. I asked her point blank how she even got enough information for a private investigator to work with, and she got all defensive, saying she put the pieces together from things I've said over the years. But I've been so careful about not saying anything specific. The only thing I can think of is, wait, did I mention the name Thomas at some point? I honestly can't remember anymore. My son kept asking why everyone had to leave and if he did something wrong. I had to explain that sometimes grown-ups have disagreements about what's best for our family, but it wasn't his fault. He wanted to know if his new friends would come back, and I didn't know what to say. The thing is, he seemed really happy during the party. He was showing off his dinosaur knowledge to all these adults who were genuinely interested and asking good questions. He got excited about the presents they brought, which are still sitting in our living room because I don't know what to do with them. But these people know who his father is. They know his father's family. They probably know things about the situation that I don't want anyone to know. I'm so angry, I can barely think straight. My mom completely violated my privacy, my boundaries, my trust. She brought strangers into my home using information she got from stalking my personal life. She ambushed me and my son with this whole setup without any warning or permission. But also, part of me wonders if she's right about him deserving to know his family. Like maybe I am being selfish, keeping him from grandparents and aunts and uncles who clearly want to know him. These people seemed genuinely happy to meet him, not like they were trying to cause problems or anything. I don't know anymore. I thought I was protecting us by keeping this private, but now there are all these people who know about us anyway, and I have no control over what happens next. My mom opened this door without asking me, and now I don't know how to close it again. My brother hasn't responded to any of my texts since yesterday, and honestly, that's making me even more suspicious. After he took mom's side last Sunday, his sudden silence makes me think he knew about this party ahead of time and feels guilty about not warning me. I'm scared that this is just the beginning. If my mom hired a private investigator and found all these people, what else is she planning? What if these family members decide they want more contact with my son than just party meetings? What if they try to track down his actual father? I've built our whole life around keeping this situation contained and manageable. Just me and him. Our routines. Our little bubble where I can control what happens and protect him from stuff he's not ready for. But now that bubble is completely popped, and I don't know how to fix it. Since so many people are asking, no, I haven't contacted a lawyer yet, but I'm definitely considering it after this. My mom using that emergency key to throw a party with strangers feels like a huge violation, and I need to know what my options are. The private investigator thing is also really concerning. Like, how much personal information about me and my son does she have now? To those asking about the specific details these people knew, the woman knew he likes the magnetic building blocks specifically, not regular Legos, that he prefers velociraptors over T-Rex, and that he organizes his dinosaur toys by time period. These are really specific things he just started doing recently. The only person who would know that level of detail is someone who's been getting regular updates about his daily life. For everyone wondering why I'm still questioning myself when she clearly crossed major lines, I guess it's because my son seemed so happy during the party. He was genuinely excited to have all these adults paying attention to his interests and asking him questions about dinosaurs. It made me realize how much he might be missing by not having a bigger family around. But that doesn't make what my mom did okay, and I'm still figuring out how to handle this whole mess. Now for the second update. You were right about this being just the beginning. It got so much worse, and I'm honestly questioning everything I thought I knew about my own life. After that mess with the strangers in my apartment on Friday, I decided to stick with our normal routine yesterday, Saturday, because I didn't want to let my mom's crazy stunt mess up my son's weekend. We always go to Target around 2 p.m. on Saturdays for any school supplies or random stuff we need, and he looks forward to checking out the toy section to see if they have any new dinosaur figures. I figured maintaining our normal schedule would help him feel more stable after all the chaos. We're in the school supply aisle comparing different notebook options. My son is very particular about having the right kind of lines for his handwriting practice when this older woman appears next to us. She's pretending to shop for folders, but keeps glancing over at us. At first, I thought she was just being nosy about my son's very detailed analysis of notebook paper quality, but then we moved to the toy section, and she followed us, still pretending to shop, but clearly watching my son look at the dinosaur toys. He found this new velociraptor figure that wasn't there last week and started explaining to me why the claws were anatomically correct compared to other brands. Normal 6-year-old stuff, right? That's when this woman completely breaks down crying and comes right up to us. She told my son he looked exactly like his daddy did at that age and reached toward his face. I grabbed his hand so fast and started pulling him toward the exit, but she followed us, saying she was his grandmother and asking to talk to us for just 1 minute. My son is confused, asking why the crying lady called him by daddy's name while I'm speed walking through Target trying to get to the parking lot. This woman is following us through the store, talking about how she's been looking for us and how much my son looks like Thomas and how she just wants to meet her grandson. I finally turned around and told her to stop following us or I'd call security. She backed off, but kept saying stuff about how Thomas talks about us all the time, and she's been hoping to meet my son for years. Years. She said years. We got to the car, and my son kept asking why that lady knew about Daddy and why she was crying. I had to make up some story about her being confused and thinking he was someone else's little boy, while my hands were literally shaking, trying to buckle his car seat. The whole drive home, I'm trying to figure out how this random woman at Target knew who we were and where we'd be. Then I remembered my mom asking all those detailed questions about my son's interests and our routines during that weird birthday party setup. Our Saturday Target trips, our usual shopping time, what kind of notebooks he prefers. My mom gave this woman our schedule so she could run into us, but when I thought about it more, I realized she'd been gathering these details for months. All those seemingly innocent questions about his school schedule, his favorite activities, when we do our weekly shopping. I thought she was just being a grandmother, but she was building a profile of our entire routine to share with strangers. I was so angry I could barely focus on getting us home safely. My son fell asleep in the car. He always does after Target trips, and I just sat in our parking lot trying to process what had just happened. But that was nothing compared to what I woke up to this morning. 31 missed calls. 31. From numbers I don't recognize. My phone had been on silent all night because honestly, I needed the break from any more family stuff. But when I checked it this morning, there were dozens of text messages and voicemails from different people saying stuff like, they know I probably don't want to hear from them, but they're Thomas's aunt, and they just want to meet their nephew, and he deserves to know his family. The first voicemail was from the target woman explaining she's Thomas's mother and has been searching for her grandson for years. She apologized for approaching us in the store, but said she couldn't help herself when she saw how much my son looks like Thomas did as a kid. Then there are voicemails from what sounds like his entire extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, all saying they've been waiting to meet him, and my mom gave them permission to reach out. Permission. Like she has any right to give permission about my son. But the text messages were the worst part. Someone sent photos of Thomas as a kid, and the resemblance to my son it's actually scary how identical they look. Same facial structure, same hair, same expressions. There's no denying this is definitely his family. I'm still getting calls and texts constantly. Every time my phone buzzes, I jump because I don't know if it's another family member or what they might want. I've had to keep it on silent just so I can function, but then I'm worried I'll miss something important, like school calling about my son. I was trying to figure out how to handle all this when my brother showed up at my door this afternoon looking completely stressed out. Like more stressed than I've ever seen him, which is saying something because he usually keeps it together during family crises. He sits down on my couch and says he needs to tell me something he probably should have said years ago. My stomach just dropped. After everything that's happened this week, I knew whatever he was about to say was going to make everything worse. I asked him what he meant, and he admits he knew who my son's father was the whole time I was pregnant. The whole time. 6 years of me being careful about privacy and protecting our information, and my own brother knew everything. I was like, how is that even possible? I never told anyone Thomas's name. I was so careful about keeping that private specifically to avoid complications. The only people who knew anything were my doctor and the therapist I saw for a few months after my son was born. That's when my brother tells me the worst part. He says I never directly asked him if he knew who the father was, so he stayed quiet to avoid starting problems. But Thomas didn't just randomly meet me at that coffee shop 6 years ago. He worked with my brother. They were friends. My brother had been showing Thomas photos from family events on his desk at work, including ones with me in them. When I went through that terrible breakup and was basically falling apart emotionally, my brother mentioned it to their friend group because he was worried about me. Thomas specifically sought me out after learning about my vulnerable situation and seeing my photos. I can't even describe how I felt hearing this. This relationship that completely changed my life and gave me my son wasn't some random meeting. This guy saw pictures of me, learned I was emotionally destroyed from a breakup, and decided to pursue me when I was at my lowest point. And my brother made it possible by sharing personal details about my mental state with his coworkers. I asked him why he never told me this, especially after Thomas disappeared and I was struggling as a single mom. He got all defensive, saying he didn't think it mattered and that knowing would just make me feel worse. He said Thomas seemed genuinely interested in me at first, and maybe if things had worked out differently, it wouldn't matter how they met. He admitted that when Mom pushed so hard at dinner 2 weeks ago, he panicked that she'd figure out his connection and expose everything. So he took her side, hoping to end the conversation quickly. But that's not his decision to make. I deserved to know that my relationship was based on someone taking advantage of my vulnerability instead of genuine attraction or connection. Then he admits the worst part. Our mom confronted him 2 weeks ago about the father's identity, right after our big family dinner fight. When he kept claiming he didn't know anything, she threatened to tell me about his role in the original relationship if he didn't cooperate. So he gave her Thomas's full name and workplace information. But it turns out she'd been trying to track down information for months on her own and just needed his confirmation to make the final connections. My mom used that information to hire the private investigator and track down Thomas's family. She's been secretly talking to his mother for 3 months, planning ways to connect with my son. The grandmother has been getting regular updates about our life, seeing photos, learning our routines. That whole Target encounter was completely set up. My mom told them exactly when and where we'd be shopping and what my son would probably be interested in looking at. I feel like my entire life has been built on lies and manipulation. My own family has been working behind my back for months to control a situation I specifically asked them to respect. They've been sharing information about my son with strangers and planning ambush meetings without any regard for my boundaries or his well-being. My brother says he's been feeling guilty for 2 weeks, knowing Mom was planning something, but was too scared to warn me because then he'd have to admit his role in everything. He says Mom has always been good at using people's guilt against them to get what she wants. I asked him if he knew about the party with all those strangers last week, and he said no, but he suspected something was happening when Mom stopped asking him questions about Thomas. He figured she'd gotten the information she needed from somewhere else, but didn't want to know the details. Typical brother stuff, honestly. He takes the easy way out of every family conflict by claiming ignorance and staying neutral until someone forces him to pick a side. I don't know what to do anymore. My phone is still buzzing constantly with messages from Thomas's family. My son keeps asking questions about the crying lady at Target and why so many people seem to know about his daddy. My mom won't answer my calls, probably because she knows I'm furious. And my brother is acting like confessing makes everything okay. I've spent 6 years building a stable life for me and my son based on the assumption that we could control our level of contact with his father's side of the family. But it turns out everyone has been lying to me from the beginning, and now there's this whole network of people who feel entitled to access to my child. The worst part is, some of these text messages from his family members seem genuinely nice. They're sharing stories about Thomas as a kid and saying how much they'd love to meet their nephew if I'm ever comfortable with that. They don't seem like bad people, just people who want to know their family member. But I can't trust any of this anymore. If my own mother and brother have been lying and manipulating me, how do I know these people don't have their own agenda? How do I know Thomas didn't tell them his version of what happened between us, which probably makes me look like the bad guy who kept his son away from him? I feel like I'm losing control of everything I worked so hard to protect. My son is going to start asking more questions, and I don't know how to explain any of this in a way that won't confuse or hurt him. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I keep wondering, what if Thomas knows about all this contact from his family? What if he's planning to show up next? I can't handle any more surprises or ambush meetings or people appearing in my life with information they shouldn't have. I just want to go back to our quiet routine where I could protect my son from complications he's not ready for. But that option doesn't exist anymore because too many people know about us now, and I can't control what they do with that information. I'm supposed to trust my family to have my back, and instead, they've been working against me for months. I don't know who else might be lying about what they know or what they're planning. Everything feels completely out of control, and I hate it.